Today we're going to prove that Valorant is a weird little game because we're going to talk about XLG's Lotus comp, which is this. Triple Senti! Triple Senti! With an Omen and a Fade. And the weird thing about this comp is that it is attack-sided. And that is what's weird, because you'd think Triple Senti, there's no way it's attack-sided. Well, I mean, look at this. 13-1. They won the game with 11 rounds on the attack side. Now, some of the more keen-eyed amongst you might remember this comp, actually. If you're a real Valorant true knower, you might remember M80 were running this comp back in NA Challenges. Here they are doing it in 2024. And they, too, had some okay attack sides, like in this game against Oxygen. They ultimately lost, but, you know, you can see here that their attack side, they won 9 rounds, right? But how on earth is a triple Senti comp ever attack-sided? Well, let me explain, and let's start here with round number 3, which is their bonus round. They don't have the best guns, but one thing you just need to understand about Lotus is as long as you can still fight out towards A and take this space, you're in a good spot.
要互动一下了。来看一下 Delby 的枪械一把数位，还可以，还可以。Delby 如果这把数位能够取得更好的效果，
人有点多，这个点什么时候给？
海量的技能也疯过来，
不掉了！
我的天呐，3个人的助攻，哇，这是单人豪华套餐5件套。
This is very important to understand that this comp that they are playing still does have some of those tools that you might need to win this fight out here on A, right? So this time they're going to do it pretty quietly. They're going to play as a pretty grouped up stack, which is what you're going to see a lot in this video, and they did in general, right? But you see here that we just put the smoke down. We got 4 players here, right? And we're just taking it slow, we're taking it nice and quiet. We avoid the Fade Horn just there, and now we're out here and we're in this fight. And now the thing is, this is the part that we are good at, right? We are good at trapping people in. So if we've got an agent like, for instance, Arrays here, you know, we can seize Gravnet, Sage Slow. You ain't getting out of this, right? You ain't getting out of here. And then once we know that we've trapped you with all this stuff, then we can Omen flash you, right? And which is kind of our big tool that we always want to get a kill with in this comp. I mean, this Raze can't do anything, right? We're literally Gravnet seized, slowed. You're not going anywhere if you're that Raze, right? So perfect start to this round for XLG. Yeah, we've had to use a smoke here. Yeah, we've had to use a lot of util to get that kill. But once we've got this bit of space, right? Once we get to this part here, and we've put this Fade Horn down, and now we own this bit of first part towards A, now you're in a lot of trouble. Okay? Because now the problem that you've got is, and you might think with a triple Senti comp, what's the problem you're going to have? Well, you're going to have a problem getting to sites. So what you want to do is be able to, you know, fake one way and go the other way quite a lot, so there's less people on that site that you end up going to. Well, as on Lotus, as soon as you take this first part of A here, it's literally built into the map that we can easily pivot between, you know, faking A going towards B as soon as we take this initial space here out towards A, right? So as soon as we win that fight, as long as we've got the tools to win that fight, we then can, you know, pivot. We can then, you know, threaten one side, go the other, right? Your opponents are going to put smokes in this kind of position here, right? To stop you from coming over towards A. But that welcomes in a B split, right? And so you can see here that we've started to group up and go for this B split. We tap the door over towards A. We're creating some pressure. Our Omen's taking a little look in there. And now we're going to go towards B, right? So this is kind of how it all works. This is how it's built in, that if you can win that initial fight, you can then start pivoting and have multiple options.
去裸清。
对，不过隔壁的话，队友来帮忙了嘛。
A B 门对了，
这位就会漏枪法了吧？
没办法，主动拉出来没有问题。而且对面是6个人在作战，进攻方这一分很有机会会带走第3分。是的 ，AG 已经眼看也是被进包，而且碟里面密密麻麻的进攻方安包之后的技能已经放了下来。
想要绕。
And that's the second thing. Once we've decided to do it with something like a Sage Wall, it's actually pretty hard to stop us from then doing it, right? So if we take a look at what happens here when they get grouped up here, once you Sage Wall this, and actually in my recent video about Sage, right, I was talking about, you know, being able to do this wall from further back and, you know, really being able to kind of sell things. But once we've done that wall, right, now these two just aren't in the round, right? Now we're in a 5v1, essentially, right, at this moment in time. You know, this is a 5v1 on this Viper at this point. Right, so this Viper, yeah, does manage to get 1 kill. We trade it. We then actually have the res up as well, right? So we're back into a 5v3 now. And this Yoru who's gone on this flank, I mean, it's just trapped, right? And of course we can, I mean, just look at the map now, right? Just literally look at the map. Of course, the round is over. That's the second point of this comp, of course, which is as soon as we take the site, the round is over. The round is just done, right? What are you going to do against this? You got smoke sonic sensor, wall sonic sensor, you got gravnet coming up. You know, you're going to have multiple smokes coming up. Maybe in some rounds, you know, we're going to have an extra trip. Maybe we don't use both trips and use one on the site instead. Obviously, as soon as this happens at any point, you have lost. Like, it's just done. Give up, right? I mean, even here, these guys trying to get back in. I mean, they're worried about potential, you know, crossfire from, you know, still someone being outside the wall. So, you know, as soon as we get to these points, the round is over. And that is a crucial point as well, right? You can never win a retake. And that's another thing that is really important to understand about this comp as well, is that it forces your opponent to never play retake, right? They can never just leave a site weak, right? Because they don't want to end up running into this, right? They can never just play that, oh, we'll just play retake C, it's fine. Well, no, because you can't, right? And that matters as well because there's 3 sites on this map. So if you think about it, if you can't play retake on any site, well, you've only got 5 players. Right, so max you can do is like 2-1-2. Well, that means there's a 1 somewhere potentially. Right, and especially with the way Lotus works, as I say, if we take this space, we can pivot here quicker than you can. Right, this space here, opening the door, going from C to B, it's possible we can beat you, you know, as you're rotating here. That's going to be a race. So we can potentially manipulate this, and if we can find where one guy is, we're going to be in a good spot. Another thing I want to point out, and again, this kind of does relate to my Sage video that I made a couple of days ago as well, is just take a look at what happens in this round and why Sage on Lotus can be particularly valuable.
对，
结束了，
而且我觉得把明俊要往前推一推吧，再挂一个单向。
真踢过来，胆子挺大的。
哦，看到了，表比已经露了侧身，角队有了夜火，哇 ，Kira 有不错的效果，但自己是一个残血，
而且有再起，这个再起非常的要命。
刚果大招没找到，但是只有1滴血。
Kira.
Right, so I think what is interesting here, right, and something that you may not have ever thought about because Sage isn't a common pick on this map, but if you just think about taking these A fights on either side, right, you will have seen these A fights happen all the time, right? It's a very common part of Lotus, these kind of rubble fights over towards A at the start of a round, right? But generally, it's not uncommon to see like one player from each side die, and then maybe it calms down. Well, if you've got a Sage res online, it works perfectly for this, right? It literally works perfectly for this moment. Where, I mean, he didn't actually come into the round with a Sage res in that round, but like if you just think about that in terms of the value you might be able to get in terms of taking those A fights early in a round when you've got Sage res online, like that's a pretty big tool to have. You know, that you can then use to just like guarantee that you end up in a good spot after those fights. Because you often will see, you know, we go 1 for 1, we go 2 for 2, you know, 3v3 now on Lotus, right? But if you can res and just get numbers back in your favor, you're in such a good spot. And now we see they're going to actually end up in the exact same round, right? Where we've ended up going, you know, in a 5v3. We've got the first 2 kills. We've used our res, right? And now the opponents are looking for answers. And again, we just do this A split. This B split, sorry. And again, this is going to be a very common round. Anytime we take A, we're just going to go for that B split. Because it's a super effective way. And then again, as soon as we get to this spot, it's round over. Because again, as soon as we're planting on B, you're in a lot of trouble. And then finally here, let's just take a quick look at round 11. And this is what our, for instance, our C exec or our B exec might look like, right? And again, if you let us into this site, if you've only got like one guy here, you're in a lot of trouble.
有回复，但是你说正义开回复好像也不太现实。
贴了个雷去 AY， 然后碎石让幽影跟夜路2个 TP 人去控。这样的话 C 点其实能拖赢的手段非常少，赵云加蛇稳就这些了。
但是这个墙其实
来
不会受到太多的影响。
你赵云蛇稳我不吃，
再给网到了，
一蹦一跳往后退，但是瀑布的人已经是名牌，瀑布的人吃到了，博兵动不了，进攻方拿 C 点就像回家一样啊！
半线阻御屏障、深感陷阱全都。
So again, as I said, if we can find a site where there's maybe only one player there, you're going to be in quite a lot of trouble, right? If we do just run to you, because we are going to play as a stack quite often, right? And again, this is the thing about Lotus. You know that your opponents are often, you know, going to be trying to aggro A. So if you do off the rip, like go for this C hit, and do find just one guy there, you can beat them there and potentially just, you know, be in a very, very good spot, right? Like they find themselves here, right? And then again, once we've got into the, you know, these positions where, you know, the camera sees him, the Gravna actually hits him, the Paranoia actually hits that Viper there as well, right? And now you've got wall down, you've got Sonic Sensor, you've got this wall, like, just look at the map again, right? And again, we don't take like a ton of space here, right? You know, we're not taking like the full site, we're not pushing you back in CT or anything like that. Like, all of AG are here at this moment, but they've still got to get through a deadlock wall. If they get through that deadlock wall, they can't come this way because there's a sage wall, right? They've got trip, sonic sensor, gravnet, you know, could be coming up. You know, you're going to get a smoke in here as well. Like, yeah, good luck, right? Good luck getting through that.
全都在点内，
这个是我觉得这一分我们会看到。
要看 Kira 的大招玩焰火，
轰到水下，但完全没有声响。
Raka 依然在他的玉城之上。
哇，枪线拆不开呀！
是的，而且 Raka 又快又大了。
脚下已经来了，是知道的，开枪了。
自己口 Raka 一个大拉，被对方处理掉。
但 Shrip 能做什么呢？其实枪是掉到了对面，
是的，
他是捡不到这把大枪的。
而且 Shrimp 这位置会先露一个头皮，墙散了。 Shrimp 的血量太低了，
是的，
再给技能给过来，
有点没法玩了。
手里只有把封刺，而且这个换点数其实没有太多的。
To finish the video, I do just want to talk about, you know, playing what I'm going to call an extreme comp like this, right? And one, you know, why don't more teams play extreme comps? Maybe, you know, that looks good here. Why isn't this, you know, more seen TMV, that kind of thing? Well, of course, it's not seen too much because it's super extreme, but the value that you can get from it is if your opponent doesn't know what they're doing against it, it can be very, very successful like it was in this game. Because what an extreme comp forces your opponent to is play extreme as well. And if they just end up trying to play a normal game of Lotus like AG did here, right, where you look at this setup here and you're like, oh yeah, that looks like a standard Lotus setup. Well, that's not going to work against this stuff, right? Like, the thing that you have to understand about these extreme comps is you have to play extreme as well. Because there is going to be an answer to it, and you just got to do that answer literally every single round. Right, so for instance, in AG's comp and what they're playing here, what they didn't do enough was they should be just putting their Yoru, you know, out here. They should be winning this A fight and putting their Yoru up here every single round. Literally 12 rounds out of 12. They should be doing that. Why should they be doing that? Because Yoru, as we saw earlier, the threat is they're going to smoke this and then they're going to gravnet and they're going to seize and they're going to omen flash you and you're going to die and you can't move. Well, Yoru can TP halfway across the map and get out of that. Right, and if he does, they then have used a ton of their util. The other thing is, this comp is always, you know, gonna be a tight-knit group. You can, if you see quite a few of them, like, that's where they are. They're not sticking in some, like, great grand default, you know, they're not holding a default for a minute long. This comp can't afford to do that because it doesn't have the tools to do that. Right, so again, this is another thing that you can understand about this comp. Also, they only have a solo smokes here, right? Like an op, they have limited movement with just an omen TP. And they don't only have single smokes as well, right? And op is going to cook them. So you, like, there are certain things that you have to do that you simply, like, you must do, though, right? It's not like, oh, this might be a good idea. It goes from, oh, this might be a good idea to you simply must do it to try and counter this stuff.